Good morning. Here we are on LinkedIn Live. Myself and Patrick, I'll do a quick round of introductions. But good morning. Hope you are all well. Hope everyone is looking forward to the weekend, which is now just over 24 hours away, and it will be here before you know it. So while we're here today, we are planning to cover hints and tips on marketing effectiveness. This is really top of mind for a lot of different reasons, some of which we're going to come on to and cover on this call. I think it's always good to kind of like frame why marketing effectiveness is so important based off of where we're currently at as an industry. So the plan is to come like cover that and give that some sufficient detail. But before we jump into all of the juicy details around that, what we want to do effectively is give a little bit of a introduction in terms of who we are. So I will start off. I am Dan Dunn. I am CEO and co-founder of Paper Planes. Paper Planes is a company that we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about today. If you want to find out more about us, then you can reach out to us afterwards, or we're always more than happy to talk to you about what it is that we're doing and how we can add value for you. But primarily, we work with all sorts of e-commerce brands to help them drive the type of postal marketing that gets noticed and gets opened by your customers. And why would we do that? Because actually we know that postal marketing is one of the most effective ways of reaching out to customers and getting your brand in front of them. So that's me. My background was Tesco Clubcard with my co-founder, Steve. I was there between us, we were there for about 20 years. And then we've been doing this now for 8 years, building up experience on automated programmatic mail streams, analytics, optimization, and hints and tips to help you improve marketing performance, which we'll be covering today. Patrick, do you want to give an introduction? I think you're on mute, unless it's just me who can hear you. No. All right. Well, while Patrick sorts out his technical difficulties, we've also got another special guest who's waiting behind the scenes, who I'm going to introduce to the stage. So there you've got myself, who's co-founder of Paper Planes. But of course, none of the magic could happen, and I couldn't do it without my better half and the person who actually has the brains in the operation, Steve. So Steve, do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
Just kidding. My mic is actually working, I think. I just wanted to screw with Dan's head there a little bit.
Mission accomplished on that one, mate.
Yeah. My name's Steve Kinder. I co-founded Paper Planes with Dan. We both worked in data for combined 25 odd years prior to this. So we started off in dunnhumby, which was the data brain behind the Tesco Clubcard, and from then on we worked in the technical data arm of that, and then shortly after, Dan joined Go Inspire Group to set up Paper Planes, and then I followed him shortly after he gave me a big pitch about the dream that is Paper Planes.
The dream that keeps on giving, no doubt. Thanks, Steve. So, Patrick, how are you getting on?
You tell me. Is it?
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Well, unfortunately, guys, Patrick's mic is now working.
It's the only way to keep me quiet. It is a good way as well, to be honest, turn the mic off. But yeah, I'm Patrick. I am head of growth. I have been working in digital for over 20 years. And that's interesting because I do not consider myself having left digital. The format that we send at Paper Planes might be physical, but the approach is digital. So my work is to help clients understand how their data from a wide range of sources can be translated into a physical format to drive the best engagement, basically. So that's a bit about what I do, and that's an example of it. I help customers understand, and I help people understand through the site, through the social, and in person.
Also, previous client. So,
Yeah.
So, putting our money where our mouth is, it was so good that you thought, you know what, I've got to get myself on this automated programmatic direct mail bandwagon. And now here we are, never look back.
Yeah,
right. So that's our intro. And that's, as I say, we'll talk a little bit about paper planes later on, but this is more around the ability to, run through measurement in a bit more detail. From a housekeeping perspective, a couple of things that we want to cover off. We will aim to keep you all to time. In fact, if I can, I'll aim to be quicker than the 1 hour to leave time for any questions, comments, thoughts in terms of what we've shared. So yeah, timekeeping is something that I could do better at in general in life, but I'm going to really try to adhere to a good time for everyone on this call today, or webinar today. And if you do have any comments or any questions as we go through, let me know, because if I don't see them, hopefully Patrick will, or Steve. And yeah, ask us anything you want as we go through as well. That's what the big hand is about there. And engagement, if there's certain things we're talking about that you like or don't like or disagree with or agree with, just stay engaged, let us know, so we can cover off all of these different areas in sufficient detail. So when I put all this stuff together, I had a really fancy kind of Canva with the animations and things that are kind of pop up out of different places to kind of keep the engagement going. But I've kind of panicked on the way into this, and I've loaded it all into a PDF. And now all of your animations are going to go out the window. And it's really going to hurt me when we come on to the next slide, where I begin to talk about the amount of marketing spend that is wasted currently. However, let's just get ourselves into some firm basics in order to ground measurement of marketing. And if we, because the reason why measuring marketing performance for e-commerce is so important is obviously because we are all spending a big amount of money in marketing. And why are we spending money in marketing? It's to hit one of these three areas in most cases. So we're either looking to try to establish introducing customers to the brand, the product, or the service, the awareness stage. This is good old-fashioned Harvard Business Review marketing modeling 101 here. So if anyone hasn't seen this in 10, 15, 20 years, it's good to always go back and frame some of the logic as to what we're going to talk about. So we're either doing marketing for awareness, to raise awareness about what it is that we want to talk about, or we're getting someone further on down the funnel. So we're getting them to the point where they are considering your brand. So this isn't a case of understanding who you are. They know who you are. And what we want to do is guide customers to evaluate your products or services against competitors. So effectively, that is more of okay, you've kind of got them, but you need to do a little bit more. And of course, what a lot of last click attribution models that we're going to run through, and a lot of funnel marketing and a lot of retargeting capability is really geared around a decision. So influencing customers to purchase your products or services. Now, obviously, there is more data available by the time we get to the decision area. And this is why marketing can become a lot more granular. It's why marketing can become a lot more targeted when you're at a decision level. Consideration still gives you probably some good data points. But awareness is harder because effectively it is more acquisition led, it's more prospect led. We're having to do a lot more in terms of understanding who customers are. And as we'll come on to, if we don't know who customers are that we're targeting, then it makes it harder to really measure the marketing performance in a way that isn't aggregated. Just realize it looks like I'm in a jungle here. It's not, it's just a really nice pot of flowers that's over the top of my head.
I liked it. I thought it was a little bit like you're on a secret mission to share the information with us.
Secret mission or hiding in the bushes. One's quite quite a negative connotation. The other one is like I like where your head was at, Patrick. Okay, and that's the logic, right? So this is the foundation. This is the models. This is anyone who is a student of the business game and loves marketing, like I'm sure we all do on this webinar, this is some of the structure of what we were taught in order to then inform our marketing decisions. But why it really matters, I'm going to go back to two quotes. One from the absolute legend in business. You just can't get enough of this guy in terms of quotes. You see his quotes all over the place. Henry Ford. So let's take it back to someone who was an absolute founding father in the art of marketing, but not so much personalization, because one of my favorite quotes of his of all time in relation to the Model 4 TT when they first launched that was the customer can have it in whatever color they want so long as it's black. That type of personalization model probably doesn't work as well in today's age, but his point's absolutely valid. Stopping advertising to save money is like stopping your watch to save time. Okay, so we'll all get downward pressure from.
I've not heard that one, Dan. That is an absolutely exceptional quote.
The more you think about that, the more it makes sense. Yeah.
And I think back then as well, what stopping and starting was probably much more complicated. It's much easier to fall into that trap these days because all these different campaigns, platforms, Google's telling you all different types of truths. Stopping a campaign in there can be a 2-second job that you'll be paying for.
100%. And this is the thing, we all get downward pressure from founders, board members, finance teams, other areas within marketing of why are we spending, we need to reduce all spend. Like we've been there, we get there all the time. It's like we need to cut all spend because sales aren't great, or things aren't going the way we thought, or we're not hitting our growth trajectories. But that isn't the point. The point is that advertising is working. Like advertising will work for you to hit one of those key 3 funnels. But the problem is what's working and what isn't. And this is where marketing performance and tips for marketing performance are really, really crucial for our consideration, because there is a lot that isn't working right now. And there will always be a lot that isn't working, but we feel as if we have to do it, or we have to really keep up with the Joneses and kind of like spend the money on certain elements because other people are. But we need to get under the bonnet. We need to understand what actually is working and what isn't, but we can't turn all advertising off. So that's really key. And then back to good old Walt Disney. I spent many a day walking around the theme parks of Walt Disney back in a previous life when I used to work as a cultural representative in Epcot, the Rose and Crown pub. What a fantastic time that was. So Walt Disney's near and dear to my heart. And ultimately, Disney are the epitome of a company that is about building loyalty. If you've ever been to a Disney World theme park, all they care about is immediate guest service recovery and keeping people loyal. And Disney knew something back in the day, which is absolutely foundational for all forms of marketing performance measurement today and all purposes of marketing, which is the goal of marketing is to create a customer who is so loyal, they will never consider buying from anyone else. And that is really key, because what that's doing is moving us from the decision funnel into a loyalty funnel, which is going to protect your spend over the longer term. And as we get to know more about customers, guess what? We can personalize to them at greater degrees. We can really begin to get after what informs their purchase behavior, like all of the good stuff that effectively can drive further value from them. So what we're now going to cover is exactly what percentage of spend is wasted. So if you do follow me or Paper Planes on LinkedIn, you may have seen that I've been on a bit of a mission this week in terms of talking about the actual percentages of spend that's wasted. If you aren't following, or if you haven't seen, or if you haven't come across this, then it's still a good game to play. And I'm going to try and get this out there before we move to the next slide. So Patrick, Steve, let's start with you guys. What percentage, according to Walk, what percentage in 2025 of marketing spend is wasted? In fact, Patrick, it's not even point asking you because I know you're on my LinkedIn. So Steve.
I was going to win. I was going to win then. You have to mute me again.
What percentage of marketing spend is Walk predicting in 2025 across different industries is currently being wasted?
35%.
35% feels a little bit too close for him to not have seen the post either.
I haven't, honestly haven't. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, there you go. So according to research across a number of different areas, we are currently working at a core issue of marketing where basically 40% of spend is meaningless. Meaningless is a strong word, but effectively this is kind of like the core context. Now, what's interesting is that it seems to be, from the majority of research out there, that the issue of marketing waste really lies in decision-making errors. So this isn't about kind of like whether different forms will work or not, but many brands are relying on past experiences or industry conventions. And I love that one, and it's so true, industry conventions. To formulate marketing strategies. Now, if you're doing that, you are neglecting changes in the marketing environment and consumer behavior. One of the things we're going to talk about later on is WhatsApp marketing. So that's a perfect example of something which has really come out of nowhere in 2025, but might challenge your traditional spend on things like Google or Meta. So that path dependency then begins to lead to a significant amount of resources being allocated to inefficient or worse, ineffective channels. So it seems like a shocking stat on the face of it, but we know that there are big drivers behind that. Some things to call out in terms of giving some credence to that. So Meta revealed 2022 in its advertising transparency report that over 35% of ad impressions failed to reach a target audience. 35%. For direct mail, we have a 3% return rate of direct mail. So in general, as an industry, we know that around about 3% of direct mail will get returned to because it won't reach customers. Paper planes actually is a lot worse. Paper planes is a lot better. That's the term I was looking for. Paper planes is a lot better. Oh, but 3% is the industry standard, but paper planes is a lot worse. It's not. Paper planes is much better. We have a 1% standard return rate for our mail, or under 1% in a lot of cases. But just look at that from a ad impression perspective. 35% being wasted or not seen is crazy. Unilever discovered in their own audits that nearly 30% of its digital advertising budget was wasted on invalid traffic and low quality media. As a result, Unilever back in 2022 began significantly reducing partnerships with inefficient media marketing.
These stats don't surprise me because I mean it's just anecdotally speaking, but the rise of the bots and AI on Facebook, Instagram, you know what I mean. You might be targeting a lot of these computers with a lot of advertising, and it's not in Instagram's interest. I mean, it makes Instagram. The bot thing is a crazy thing because it makes Instagram shareholders are looking at how many accounts are active. And bots really pump that up to make them look really, really strong. But realistically, from marketing, they have to regulate it somehow. From a marketing perspective, if you're targeting bots with ads, this is wasted spend. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is AI is a keyword now. Obviously, it's a buzz term, but with AI does come the ability for there to be more waste in these areas. So it's not easy out there, and you can begin to see when you see that stat to begin with, you go, okay, well that's quite high. But actually, when you boil it down, it begins to get to something which is there's a lot of reasons as to why it can be difficult. So we've talked about ad fraud, click fraud, other forms of fraudulent activity. That is a significant portion of marketing budgets, and it's something which, if you're investing in SEO, paid social, it's something which is hard. Visibility and fraud, these are two things which effectively become very hard to mitigate against. But we can dive into some of the other areas as well. What they were calling this inability to be flexible versus certain channels, the need to rely on certain channels, is poor execution. And we see it all the time. You can have campaigns that look amazing. The creative is unbelievable. But if the placement is wrong, if it's inconsistent messaging, or if we're just using channels because it feels as if we should be doing it, as opposed to anything else, it is a poor execution and it is going to come back to haunt us. Measurement and optimization. This is why we're here, right? So we're going to come on to this one. So let's focus on poor targeting. This is an area which is targeting is something that is easy to get wrong, because effectively what we want to do is reach as many people as possible. Going back to our 3 pillars of marketing, we want to have the awareness stage really fueling and driving everything. But it's a fundamental principle that the more targeted you are of your campaigns, the more chances you have of success. Of course, it's also going to drastically reduce your volumes, but abandoned flows for certain retargeting forms will work better than reactivations. The reason being is that the abandoned flow is right at the end of the funnel. We've got more data on customers, reactivations leaning on data which is a little bit older. So targeting is really off the back of the creative, the delivery of the ad to the customer, and if they're not interested, then of course it is going to be a wasted impression. But it also comes down to the granularity of what you're targeting. I don't know if you had experiences of this previously, Patrick, in your old roles.
Yeah, certainly did. Like if you look through that list, the amount of situations where I would be faced with poor performance that you would struggle to explain because of one of those features has been the number of times is off the chart, and especially if you're working in agencies, because the agency is supposed to be an expert. So you're stuck in the middle between faulty metrics on one side and a client wondering why it hasn't worked on the other. So you get trapped in those situations if you haven't got robust metrics and an understanding of what the media has delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see this all the time in terms of the challenge for spend and making sure that brands feel as if the engagements and collaborations that they have, whether it be internally in teams or with their external agencies, is giving them the best value. So it's tough. All of this foundation comes back to it is tough. Like there is a lot of spend that's wasted. There's a lot of reasons as to why that occurs. So what are therefore our 3 essential tips for helping address marketing effectiveness? This is the moment that everyone, all 7 of you, or I don't know, I can't see the live count, but this is the one that everyone has been waiting for in terms of the big reveal. Okay, so first and foremost, getting the right channel marketing mix for attribution is tip 1. We're going to go through, thanks to the guys from Rocket and a few other areas, we're going to go through some of the different ways in which you can actually look at multi-channel attribution and what it means for customers in terms of tracking. So this is tip 1. Multi-channel attribution will help you understand which channels really drive sales and customer value. And it helps you move beyond last click to consider the full customer journey, because last click appears to be, if you are going to look at attribution, last click takes a lot of the time and emphasis in a lot of attribution models, but there are others. And it's worth covering them. So we're going to go through some of those. And again, if Steve and Patrick, if you have any experience of these as we go through, or if you're listening in or watching and you've got experience and you want to chip in with some questions or comments or thoughts around it, please do. The second one is all around test and control and incremental attribution. Looking outside of the way in which channels interplay with each other and looking at the way that channels actually begin to stand up on their own as a impact. So what is testing control methodologies? How do we set them up? How effectively can you set them up for your marketing in order to ensure you've got as good a way of knowing the value that's coming from an incremental level for your channels as possible? And the last key tip here is around really being granular on your KPIs and measurement. we'll cover the main KPIs that we will typically run through with clients planning e-commerce spend. Like that's something which we'll aim to cover, and we'll kind of talk through some of the new areas that are coming up in that space as we kind of like evolve our understanding of the offering and as our brands begin to evolve their overall understanding of what it is that they're doing. Because KPIs, it's easy again for lip service to say we've achieved the CAC of this, or our conversions are this, or the return on investment we normally look at is this. And of course, there'll be certain things that are unique to each brand, like margins are normally unique to each brand, what they need to achieve based on margin. But generally speaking, there should just not be one KPI that's looked at. There should be multiple. And there are some hidden ones. And especially when it comes to direct mail as a channel, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the hidden features. And then just a couple of words on TikTok measurement and WhatsApp measurement as well. We'll be covering, because I think it is really important to kind of like to run through and give some sufficient detail on. Okay, so let's talk about... Steve, were you going to say something then, or was it just an echo?
No, just an echo. Go for it.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about good old-fashioned multi-channel attribution models. And I think it's first worth calling out some of the top linear attribution, or some of the top attribution models that typically you will see for brands out there. If we start with probably the most, one of the most interesting ones in terms of its utilization. So linear attribution model. So effectively, let's say you are planning your email campaigns, your meta campaigns, you've got Google SEO, and you've got ad spend, which is going out there. This is basically a very easy, we're going to allocate 25% to each channel. We're going to have no differences or variances in terms of the channel. What we're going to do is we're going to detect and look at each form of marketing that we think has been put in front of a customer on a customer journey, and we're just going to assign it all even. We're just going to say that, well, maybe some of it comes through Facebook, maybe some of it comes through Meta, as it is now, sorry. And this is quite similar, I'd say, to basic econometric modeling, in that you're looking at all of the touch points that effectively have hit a customer, and you're really kind of like beginning to base it off of everything that's in front of them. You then have time decay. So effectively what you could be doing instead is saying, well, actually, rather than taking Dan Dunn as a customer of Impossible Brew, which is a very good non-alcoholic beer, which has come out, has got some great traction over the last couple of years. They've hit me with email. They've hit me with meta retargeting. They've probably bidded on some key terms for maybe my demographic. If I hit that, they see me come through and they see me click through on that Instagram ad, and effectively I'm there. They're going to look at every touch point that they've sent to me in that model, and they're just going to assign credit to each one of them in an equal way. Now, what you could do instead is you could look at time decay. So you could say, well, actually, yeah, we know that we hit Dan with an email, 3 weeks ago. But really, when he clicked through on that Instagram ad, a week ago, that's where he really started to show some interest. And then when we got him on Meta again, that ultimately led to the purchase 5 days ago, that's really important. So effectively what we're going to do is we're going to weight more emphasis on the touch points that have landed nearest to then kind of like suggest that that's the type of customer, or that's the reason as to why he's gone through and made the purchase.
I hope I don't ruin the next slides, but what this all revolves around is digital's disposability.
Yes.
So each one of those touch points, all of them, it's like a fleeting moment. And with these snapshots, you've got to try and piece it together. Not one piece of the creative at any of those touch points is with that person for 60 days, for 30 days. Like no point are they going to keep, are they going to print out, are they going to keep a Facebook ad that they really like? And the truth is a lot of people are going to see ads that they like, and then they'll move page and then it's gone. The algorithm changes, they'll never see it again. They miss out on opportunities like the time decay here for a digital ad. I mean, it's seconds, isn't it? How many times have you seen? I know me personally, I've got a birthday to buy for. I'll see something that I want, and then the page will move, and then I can't quite remember the brand name, and then it's gone, and then I can't find it again, and my time decays drops straight off there.
Yes,
so without physical
absolutely.
formats, you don't spread the risk without having physical formats in the mix.
Yeah, very true, very true. And this is why as well we'll come on to what about those pesky offline channels? You know, this doesn't take into consideration the spend that's gone into AdSmart to target regions, doesn't take into consideration your tube advertising, your out-of-home advertising. You know, it's very difficult to build those into the model.
Yeah.
So you have your linear attribution model, you've got your time decay. Then you've got some interesting ones. I've got to admit, I'll throw my hands up here. Some of these ones I hadn't actually heard of in terms of attribution before researching for this webinar. But a couple of things that are interesting here. First of all, a U-shaped attribution model. And again, Steve, Patrick, you know, let me know as we go through if you've come across these and you've had any experiences of them. So a U-shaped model will say, do you know what? What I'm really interested in is what got the awareness going in the first place, and then what got them over the line at the end. So everything in the middle is neither here nor there. But what we're really going to weight a lot of emphasis on is the first thing that got a customer's attention, the first way that we can accurately track a customer in the first instance. And then we're going to look at the thing that really drove the conversion, the last follow-up before the actual conversion occurred. That would be what's known as a standard U-shaped attribution model. And then you have the W, which again is another interesting way of looking at it. So the W suggests what's important is the first contact, the first form of marketing to the customer that we can determine, the last form of marketing that we can determine from the customer, and the one right in the middle. So the one that kind of like kept them on the burner, kept them lit in terms of a purchase, but then kind of like, you know, there might have been other touch points along the way, but what we're looking at is the start, the middle, the finish.
And then, that really links in with your first slide, because it's, you know, the three different buckets of the funnel, because you're putting a lot of weight on the first bucket, the middle bucket, and the end bucket. So that's why the W-shaped attribution exists.
Yeah, it is. It's giving someone a way of kind of going, do you know what? We know we have to raise a bit of an awareness. We know that we have to get people to the consideration phase. We know we need them to help them make a decision. So it's like, it's kind of nice. It fits that kind of like that terminology, doesn't it? Full path attribution. So effectively, this is looking at what would become nearer to last click. So effectively, we are focused on multiple different touch points, but effectively the one that we're really going to look at with emphasis is going to be the last click. And whereas the different ones that are on the journey are of interest, it's really the last click, which is the one which we are going to give a lot of time and attention to. Now, I would suggest, and then let's just cover custom attribution, because this is one obviously that is ad hoc and custom. So we don't come across this a lot. But if you are employing a marketing analyst or a specialist in the end-to-end of marketing who has years of experience working in big corporate or different Shopify brands or whatever it is, they may have their own advanced models of tracking things. We do work with a lot of brands that have very unique quirks in terms of their analytics as what they're tracking. So these obviously are custom by name, custom by nature. It's very hard to pin them down, but you might be working on them right now. You may very well be a consultant who's working with a brand who's applied their own custom model. But full path attribution, focus on last click. This is one I would suggest we see a lot in terms of the conversation that's had in order to make things easier is what was the last marketing interaction that we saw before conversion. And if you think about it, this is what Google is built off of. This is what Meta is built off of. A lot of brands that you can invest in for advertising are built off of, we were the last ones, we should take credit for it. Okay, that click came through us, that was ours. Like that customer came through our channel, that was ours. They converted through that channel, that was ours. This feeds into other forms of marketing effectiveness that we would not suggest you should be doing. Things like code attributions, or beginning to look at DM code attribution or email code attribution, or really trying to understand effectiveness of campaigns via code. The code gives a path to the customer and what they've interacted with. But when you think about it, it is the last thing that they've done on the journey. And if it's a path of least resistance in most cases, big Black Friday periods, big promotional periods, if they have access to things like promo codes on site, guess what? Your marketing effectiveness is out the window, because they are going to engage with something which is going to be the path of least resistance. So last click is very similar in it. What it's suggesting is, don't worry about your forms of all your different forms of marketing. Don't worry about that 100% of advertising spend. Don't worry about that, because we are actually 20% of it, but don't worry, we're not the wasted 20%. Just focus on people who are coming through us and clicking on us. And that's the same with code attributions. Don't worry about everything else. They entered this code, so it couldn't have been anything else. It must be this. So this is why so the attribution models and the different ways of going about them, there's lots of them. So what are we trying to land here with this first tip? It is effectively, you have to understand that there is an interaction that is occurring between multiple different forms of marketing that you can invest in. And you have to get comfortable with an attribution which is going to allow you to hit the objectives of your board and your founders and your wider stakeholders. But you have to be mindful of the fact that there is an interplay which is occurring between these different channels. And it's complex, and there'll be many different ways of looking at it, but some form of understanding of attribution is key for measurement here. Would you add anything to this, guys?
Yeah, I think the attribution part, it's that pre-assist sometimes. Like you look at that third, the Facebook in the full path attribution and Gmail in the custom attribution, where that 40% loss is the hardest to measure. Because once they get to the end, easy money saying, oh, well, the last click got it. Like you can't scale with that. You've got to get deeper into that funnel and try and work out what's happening at that third and even the first step, like getting people through awareness.
And if you absolutely sort of drink the Kool-Aid on last click attribution and you completely neglect everything at the awareness phase, your YouTube, your 30-minute YouTube tutorial that you did that got people in the first place might have only got 500 views, but that could have had a really huge impact on a lot of the other, the Facebook hit wouldn't have happened without that YouTube tutorial. So you have to pay attention to every single touch point across the journey.
Absolutely. So, spoiler alert, this is tip one in terms of making sure your attribution is there, but there is an interdependency. Like these tips are linked, because you're going to understand that your marketing plays that the marketing journey is going to interact with each other. Different forms of marketing is going to interact, and that has to be considered. But now we're going to lead into some of the challenges with multi-channel attribution and how you can take it one step further, effectively rocket fuel your strategy for marketing effectiveness measurement. There are challenges with multi-channel attribution. And again, there are challenges that come based off of regulation and based off of the ability to know who a customer is to really get effective. So GDPR, it has been, since the introduction in 2018, really good at making brands actually be respectful and diligent with how data is used. But from a tracking perspective, especially online, it makes things a lot harder, because some of the data some of the combinations of data that can be applied to understand what customers do and why, that you can still freely do in other countries, like in the States, some parts of Asia, has become a lot harder to do in the UK and Europe. So GDPR does block your ability to accurately track customers from a multi-channel perspective. And let's not forget that, Google, TikTok, Meta, they don't necessarily love talking to each other and collaborating with each other in an open form. for you to get the best of your customer journey. They are walled gardens. They effectively will hold data, and it's not in their best interest to effectively tell you that their marketing doesn't work. So that makes things difficult, and data share and data transparency makes things difficult. And we talked about offline data channels. Like, what do you do about offline data? What do you do about direct mail? Is there a way of making it measurable and understanding the impact of it when you can't track it online? Yes, there is. We'll come on to that part. But tube advertising, TV advertising, radio advertising, any traditional form of above the line, is not easy to feed into an attribution model.
I'd say that as well, Dan. CTV, connected TV is just growing and growing. I think a lot of us will have seen this week that ITV in the UK dropped behind YouTube for the most viewed on TV. People aren't buying things on their television. So you've got another issue there where it's existing outside of it. So what you're seeing is an addressable media emerge where someone has got it on the TV, but you have to then join the dots to what they're doing on a second device or where they're going to purchase at a later date. And that multi-channel attribution by Shopify can actually do that. Like, that's where you need to be working to get those numbers into the right shape so you can share it with your stakeholders.
So from a multi-channel attribution perspective, considering the challenges around data and considering the challenges around offline marketing channels, here's a tip. If you aren't on Shopify right now as a platform, it's something that is considering, because Shopify do make it easier when it comes to multi-channel attribution. The advancements that they have made in terms of allowing brands to look at things like purchase signals, to look at early adapters, the way that they are able to bring data points together through their ShopPay network, their POS systems, makes a difference. So one of the areas here, if you're on Shopify, you've got utilization of Shopify right now, you might want to consider upgrading through the packages, Shopify Plus. We have a lot of brands we work with on Shopify Plus, and they don't have that much negative to say about it. And it's all about getting a platform which allows you to track multi-channel capability at a better level. If you aren't on Shopify, it's worth considering. And this webinar is not sponsored by Shopify, and we're getting no financial kickback by Shopify. And there's no incentive for us to mention Shopify other than let's give them their flowers for good work that they're actually doing. And effectively, a great example, and there's many case studies on there, Bard Footwear, we're able to decrease acquisition costs by up to 50% and exclude 40% customers who are ineffective from their targeting as a result of multi-channel attribution that they can see on things like Shopify.
Wow.
Notable shout outs as well to brands like Triple Whale, who do a great job in terms of attribution. Brands like Raise, Will Young, not the pop idol singer, but Will Young at Raise has got an amazing company that can help with attribution and LTV tracking. There's a few notable shout outs there, but make life easier through Shopify. So this is the link. This is the spoiler alert. Okay, so we've talked about the need to look at different channels and look at the effectiveness of different channels. But that's great, but it has to be complemented with something else. So if you really want to make your marketing effective, it's not just about understanding and getting comfortable with an attribution model that will determine sales and attribute sales to different channels in different ways. But then what you want to do on top of that is validate performance of marketing channels through things like incrementality testing and test and control. We're going to give a lot of spoiler alerts as we go through this, but I hate to break any hearts on the call, on the webinar. Keep on calling it a call, it is a webinar. I hate to break any hearts, but the ability to market at a customer level and to track data from customers and what they were doing, it didn't start with Google in 1999. It didn't start with Meta in Zuckerberg's dorm in 2004. It didn't start with email marketing whenever MailChimp first came onto the scene. It didn't start with those areas. It started with the good old-fashioned loyalty card and the ability to take POS data for customers who are coming offline, who are spending all of their money in store, and giving marketers a real headache. we can profile customers at an aggregated level, but how in the hell are we going to know what an actual individual customer is buying? Why would we want to know that? Well, if we know what an individual customer is buying, we can be a lot more specific in our marketing. Okay, and if you're specific with your marketing, what will that achieve? It will achieve less waste, because effectively we'll know that we're hitting the customer with the right message. So how do we link POS in-store data to a customer? Oh, well, maybe we give them a couple of incentives to be loyal, because we know that if we can keep on bringing them back to spend, it's going to be more valuable for us. So maybe we introduce a loyalty card. Homebase are widely known with a spend and save card. Late 80s is one of the first to actually really get behind capturing customer data in exchange for loyalty points, money off. But of course, the big driver came in 1995 with Clubcard, Tesco Clubcard, and how that transformed their business through someone who just could not compete with promotions and trade to the UK's leading grocer, and a leading grocer across Europe as well in a lot of instances. Now, why have we spent so much time in this tips for marketing effectiveness talking about Clubcard? It's because everything that is done with Tesco data and Clubcard data is measured by test and control methodologies. So it's the ability to take customers who you're going to target with your audience and not just send 100% of them the content you want to hit them with, but actually randomly, and that's key, randomly holding back an allocation of those customers who do not receive mail, so you can effectively understand the difference between customers who are receiving a form of marketing and those who are not receiving that form of marketing. Why is that?
I spoke to someone about this exact point this week, because you put on those funnels, as we went through the different attribution models, describing different interpretations of what happens at each stage of the funnel. And I was talking with a customer about pay-per-click and Google Ads and what would happen in Meta. And I was like, 100% of your audience can go to Google and click on an ad. 100% of it. If you hold back some for direct mail, the portion you've held back, they've all got the same access to Google. You can limit their access to direct mail in a way that you cannot do in any other channel. It's really probably one of the last remaining channels where the advertiser is actually in control. Like in all other places, you just give them money and then they sort it out. Like this is one of the last places where you can pick and you can run your own experiments, define your own results, and determine what worked.
Patrick, you live, breathe, and eat growth for Paper Planes. And you can see that pouring out of your pores, if that is a term. Probably not. But of course, that test and control, we did promise we're not going to make it just about direct mail here. That test and control, because you're absolutely right. This is some of the advantages of direct mail. But test and control methodologies, you can apply them across all forms of your marketing channels. You can determine custom audiences and randomly, before you load them up, select customers to hold back and look at the uptake of your orders, your subscriptions, your products through doing that. You can do the same on email. You can do the same through the audiences you upload on TikTok. There are, broadly speaking, two forms of test and control methodologies that brands will do. It will either be the A/B randomized split, and random's key here, by the way. You have to set up some form of selection of your audience, which ensures it being random. Because even if you chop off the bottom 10% of your list, be careful with that. That may have some biases in it. That may have some time biases in it. That may have some purchase biases in it. So if you want some hints and tips around how you can randomize controls, get in contact, and we provide you with those as well in terms of best practice there. If you're not doing an ABI randomized split, then you maybe could do it through geo. So this is another way that we hear of testing controls being applied. Geographical blackouts for certain areas that look similar versus running activity in other areas where you'd expect similar levels of spend. It's a way of doing it, I guess, Steve, but probably not the way we'd recommend.
No, that's true. I mean, I think it has to be, the test and control goes back. I mean, the earliest one was I think it was in the 1740s, where James Lind treated some sailors for scurvy with limes and the other not. And they've been on the same boat. They're as close as you can possibly get to the same audience. And that is still true today. You need to keep keep it unbiased. It's that they all share the same characteristics, but some people are not getting that very small in increment in marketing that the others aren't, and you've got to be very absolute about that. If you're absolutely sure they haven't received that marketing, it's the perfect test to study how effective that marketing is. And for me, there is no different. There is nothing that comes close to that. So it was true in 1740 something, and it's true now.
Brilliant point.
Yeah. You love bringing up scurvy in meetings, don't you? Okay, so yeah, how does this work in terms of your selection? So you have your randomized selection. You know when your media exposure effectively has gone into home. Now remember, what we're not doing here is what tip one's doing, looking at the fact that there are different forms of multi-channel marketing that are hitting, and what proportion you're going to assign. What we're now interested in is the real granular detail. Do you know what? I've got my marketing plan. I've got sign off from the FD and the founder. Now I want to really understand how hard I can make this plan work for me. So I know that direct mail is part of that plan. I'm roughly assigning about 25% to it. But if I actually go into this and the audiences who we're targeting, if I apply the randomized controls, what level of incrementality I'm seeing here? And is that level of incrementality covering things like my margin, covering things that I need to be considering? So I can basically let it run, and as you apply these test and control methodologies across the different things you're doing, the minute you find the channel that isn't working for you is when you should be cutting it out of your mix and coming back to that ability to reduce the wasted spend. What you'd see here in a standard test and control is you have customers who are being exposed to marketing and their conversion levels and their incremental spend. That's the blue line, the blue chart. And you've got customers who are being exposed to everything else you're doing. And again, here's another important tip. Do not limit exposure to the groups who you are testing. Let them see everything else. Let them be part of the journey, because the one thing you're testing is one thing, and that is the exposure to this marketing channel versus not seeing it. So what you'll see here is the impact of people being exposed to the channel versus the impact of people not being exposed, and hopefully this incremental start spend line building. That's what you're looking for, and that's really, really key. And what about those hard to measure offline channels like direct mail? Well, actually, now feeding back into the king of growth, Patrick's point, this is what Tesco Club Card spend was built off of. This is what home-based spend and save is built off of. And this is what good old-fashioned paper planes methodology is built off of as well, for the clients who want it in terms of it being important for their marketing mix. Test and controls allow you at an address level, at a postcode level, at an email address level, whatever level you want, it allows you to look at the value of customers and the exposure of mail being in home. And it uncovers some really interesting trends. And those trends aren't just restricted to whether a customer is going to immediately come back and convert or not. It goes down to repeat purchase rates. So how likely are they to come back again and again and again? It goes down to how long it takes people to come back in the first place, because this is not an instantaneous recovery of sale for an abandon on direct mail. It's not an instantaneous recovery of purchase. But if you have the right tech integration in place and you've got the right test and control methodologies in place, one of our best examples is the work that we do with Packed Coffee, a long-term client of ours. And they are able to look at things like page views and over indexes on page views, and whether actually the presence of direct mail in home means that people spend more time on the website. They're able to look at whether there's an over index in things like clicks to the website. They're able to determine a ROAS, not just a ROAS, but an incremental return on investment as well, which is absolutely key. That ability to apply test controls working with the right partners to focus on those areas gives visibility of a lot more things other than has this mail piece actually driven some form of conversion. Right, we've got 6 minutes left, and I promise to stay on time on this, and I'm not going to go against that promise. So thank you so much for everyone for being present today, for listening to this, for watching this. If you are recapping and watching it again, you can always reach out to us at www.paperplanes.co.uk. You can reach out to Steve Kinder, Patrick Ross, or Daniel Dunn on our LinkedIn profiles, or you can drop us an email, info@paperplanes.co.uk, if any of this has resonated or if you want to understand more. So let's finish on KPIs and measurement. These are the standard ones that we see: cost per mile, cost per click, cost per action, lifetime value. Generally speaking, subscription brands are focused on LTV. Generally speaking, online stores are focused on CPA or conversion. These are tried and tested ways of looking at different things. The one area I want to suggest here is don't just fascinate on one of these KPIs. Okay, subscription brands will look at LTV as something which is very important. Of course it is. But you also need to ensure that there is a sufficient conversion rate for your campaigns in the first place in order to get an LTV which is going to allow businesses to scale. So you don't look at these KPIs in isolation. There should be a good focus on all of them. It's so easy just to get focused on one. CPA, we need to reduce CPA, we need to reduce CPA, we need to reduce CPA. If you do that, you could probably do it through deep cut discounts. Those promotions and discounts are probably going to bring in a worse customer over time. It's going to erode your LTV. So please keep in mind the difference between just getting one CPA up there versus the impact it can have on different ones. Things like marketing may not need a promotion. You may not need a promotion to bring someone back. You may not need an incentive. We work with brands, they don't want to do incentives. But then the question is, how can we measure effectiveness? Will we give them data at their fingertips for our in-flight dashboard, to enable them to measure effectiveness? And that's what you should be demanding from anyone else you're working with across any other form of marketing. And this is the forgotten hero in every single instance, because this is something that is not easily tracked or measured when you're only looking at CPA or conversion rates. Whatever you do as a marketer, working with Shopify brands, e-commerce brands, multi-channel brands, as a consultant, whatever it is, please do not lose sight of the average order values that are being driven by campaigns. Yes, ultimately that will drive into LTV. Yes, if you have a subscription brand, you want to trade them up to the more premium lines. But average order value is so important. And you can determine through control methodologies and comparing to your different channel choices for investment, which channels generate the strongest order values. And you might be surprised in terms of what you see. The order value is as important as CPA and is as important as conversion. So we really top of mind.
And yeah, direct mail does it. That's what I saw when I was my previous role, when I was a client, and that's what I'm seeing when I got here. That's the reason why I came. You could see how well it worked. You could see what it delivered. So finding more methods, because AOV, if you've got an AOV for your site, your forecast, what you're got to deliver in the year, every bit above AOV you get is just pure profit. It's just profit. Because you've already budgeted, your CPA is budgeted at a certain level, everything's set at that. So as soon as you get above it, it's just more for your bottom line. So finding channels that can deliver AOV increases, I mean, it's gold dust.
Absolutely. TikTok marketing effectiveness and WhatsApp marketing. I just wanted to leave you guys with 3 areas in which we see these things being measured right now. Starting with TikTok, video views and reach, indicating how many people have seen the content or have interacted. Engagement rate includes likes, comments, shares, and completion rates. Hashtag performance, total views and reach generated by custom. And at a stretch, then brands begin to focus on things like conversion rates. Now, marketing mix modeling is absolutely key there. So you need to ensure that that becomes part of what you're doing when it comes to that measurement. And for WhatsApp, primarily brands are looking at message open and read rates, click-through and response rates, campaign opt-in and opt-out rates. Of course, it's an intrusive channel, so that opt-in and opt-out becomes really important. What's key with all of that? That's all awareness generating stuff. Okay. And it's something you can target to customers because you should know the customers who are falling into those different forms of marketing. So the advice for WhatsApp and TikTok is you're going to have a lot of metrics put in front of you, which are awareness. focus on the customer, focus on the actual data, because that's what's really important.
Oh, I'm going to add in something there as well. Oh, have we got enough time? Your opt-out rates will start to affect you negatively over time on those two channels. If you pick a channel where someone can't monitor the opt-out rates, nudge wink, then that won't affect you over time.
Absolutely. Should be doing it though, but test it. Make sure you test at a small level and then scale. That's key. Thank you so much, guys. Just so you know, if you are a Shopify brand, you do get 500 free sends with us to test out our approach. Get in contact with us to find out more. I hope this has been informative. We've had an absolute great time doing it. Thanks to Steve. Thanks to Patrick. Thanks to you guys for watching. And stay tuned because there'll be another webinar soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.